Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Hug It Out America Radio. I'm your host, Billy Park, and we got a good show lined up for today. Sorry I got a little thrown off. Both my daughters come walk in the door in the middle of going on the air. Not the best thing to happen. But anyway, looking outside today, and again, it's cold. The next guest we're having on here today is Renee, and I have a feeling she's in California, and it's a lot warmer than it is here. And I'm going to go ahead and get her on the line right now. She's going to talk about her. She's a super creative woman I met. She's an artist. She's a healer. She's an author. She's a therapist. Man, she's everything. You can't put a label on her. You can't fit her in a box. That's Renee McKinnon. Let's see if we can get her on right now.
Hey, Billy.
Renee, how you doing?
I'm good this morning. How are you?
Doing good. How's it in California?
It's a lovely morning here.
I figured it was.
Yeah, we got a little sunshine trying to break through some clouds, and I just need a little sweater and lots of birds out. It's springtime here, so it's really beautiful.
What part of the city you live in?
So I live in Ocean Beach in San Francisco.
Oh, I know Ocean Beach. Yeah, I know it well. Oh, yeah. And that's where the Bay of Breakers ends, right?
I'm over near the zoo.
Oh, you're near the zoo. Oh, yeah, I've been
kind
there.
of
I
the
take
other
my kids
end
there, too.
Yeah, it's we call it the edge of the Western world, actually.
And I'm assuming it's closed today. The zoo?
The beach, the zoo, well, yes, everything's closed out here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I have a friend that. Go ahead.
No, we're in pretty serious lockdown in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I heard you were. We are here too in Massachusetts. They just canceled our schools through the year, so it's been interesting with my two kids at home. And they came in the door right when I was about to go on air. I had to throw them out the door. That's what happens when you have a home studio. Things go on. Well, thanks for coming on. I mean, we've talked phone a couple times, and then we've talked through Facebook. And I think the first time I talked to you, I had that wall of love thing going, right? And that's kind of the first interaction with us.
We connected. That was when we really connected. I mean, we connected around Women's March before that.
Oh, did we? Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That was how we met each other.
Yeah. So why don't you tell a little bit about you, your history, who you are, and then get into some things you're doing. I know what I love about you is always doing all kinds of stuff. You just use your creativity in so many different ways. That's why I wanted to have you on.
Well, thank you, Billy. I think, so what do I want to say? So, I was born in Boston. I lived there until I was 35. I moved out to San Francisco in 1999 to follow a graduate school program. And in the kind of therapy I do, I wanted to do something that was a little more integrated with mind, body, spirit, because I believe that we are all connected, all those parts of ourselves, and a lot of kind of our culture and our scientific basis of thinking about things kind of divides everything up into compartments, and especially with mental and emotional health, that doesn't work very well as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so I came out to a wonderful graduate program at John F. Kennedy University in transpersonal psychology. And
where's that?
Well, that's in Pleasanton, California, which is in the Bay Area.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I know Pleasanton.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was a really great program, and I had been cleaning houses for a long time.
Oh, really?
I come from a family of hoarders, and life really always, from my experience, presents us opportunities to heal whatever's happening with us if we pay attention. And
you say you come from a family of hoarders?
Yes.
Oh,
hoarders.
Wow.
As in that TV show where they pack things floor to ceiling and you can't walk into the bedroom, and
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay. Okay.
My house, particularly growing up, wasn't to that extent. My grandmother was, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was like super crazy dysfunctional. And physical space for me is often a metaphor for the internal space of people. And so, I mean, I didn't go into house cleaning thinking that it was going to be a healing experience for me. I went into it because I had a business that failed and I needed to pay my rent. And I ended up cleaning houses for about 12 years.
What was that
I
business?
actually tried to start a joint venture with Russia, some Russian businesses. My dad and I went to Russia in 1991, and it was a really powerful experience. We went in June of 1991 when Gorbachev was still in power, and there was a lot of stimulus programs they called Glasnost and Perestroika, where they were trying to integrate the Russian economy with the world economy. And there was a lot of hard currency. There was a lot of opportunity for Western businesses to connect with Russian businesses. And so we went actually on a business exchange cruise from Moscow to St. Petersburg and back. It was a really life-changing trip. In fact, I was in St. Petersburg the night that they changed to the name from Leningrad to St. Petersburg, and it was a huge party. It was a lot of fun. But so we met a lot of Russian people, and at that point, everything was for sale, and it was kind of crazy. We had opportunities to, like, work with industrial diamonds and refrigerators and computers, and it was kind of like the Wild West. But when we went back in October of 1991, Yeltsin was in power, because in between June and October was the August Revolution. And
was that Boris
everything.
Boris, right?
Boris Yeltsin, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a really powerful experience, a really powerful time. And because there was all kinds of craziness happened, all the hard currency disappeared. And so none of the businesses that we had originally kind of finagled to try to work out, because it was a little complicated because the ruble was not traded in the rest of the world, so we had to do this kind of, it was almost like a barter thing to try to work it out to do a business with Russia at that point. So anyway, businesses.
Well, I don't think you picked up a Russian accent, but you still got that Boston accent. I hear it. I
still get the Boston accent. I do. So I ended up cleaning houses because, life, I think, is always here to support us and provides us with opportunities for the next right thing. And so, and I loved house cleaning. I often say that I moved from cleaning houses to cleaning people's spirits.
Interesting.
So this is an interesting story. So I was in graduate school, and I had moved to San Francisco, and I was starting up my cleaning business to support myself while I was going through school. And
what was it called?
I got introduced. I just called it Renee McKenna House Cleaning. But
okay. I was just curious.
Nothing fancy. And so I got introduced to this woman who, and the first day she was giving me a tour. She had a beautiful house, and she said, she showed me her office, and she said, if the door is closed, don't open it. That means I'll be with a client. And I said, what kind of client? And she said, I'm a hypnotherapist. And I said, I'm in graduate school. I'm really interested in studying different modalities. Would you be willing to, trade a session with me for a house cleaning, whatever? And she ended up being my spiritual teacher for the next 14 years. And simultaneous to my regular graduate school program, I did a training with her in what's some of the basis of the work that I do now. And I trained in shamanic healing and depth hypnosis, and actually started seeing clients as a hypnotherapist before.
What was the first thing you said? Shamanic. What did you say? Shamanic. What was that word?
Shamanic healing.
So like shaman, like witch doctor sort of thing. I mean, not that. actual meaning, but
so
they do
people
that. Okay.
tend to think of shamanism. So the old view of shamanism is witch doctors, but really what shamanism is that it's working with the energy of nature directly as a healing force. That's really shamanism is similar to what some Eastern traditions call animism, which is like, I don't know if you know about Taoism, which is that's an Eastern Asian spiritual tradition, which in Taoism and animism and in shamanism as well, it's the idea that everything has a life force in it. Everything has its own intrinsic wisdom and strength and energy and power if we're able to tune into that and listen to it. Whether you work with plants or you work with the earth or you work with animals, and working in the non-physical, what I call the non-rational, which is actually really where most people's dysfunction resides, is in our non-rational, non-physical. It's in our feelings, it's in our thoughts, it's in our experience and our body felt. I mean, people certainly have dysfunction in the physical world that manifests, but it usually manifests itself out of those other kind of non-rational places. So working shamanically really allows what I call it our active imagination, which is our own, again, kind of non-rational, often in images or sensory or body felt or intuitive ways of experiencing the world. And when we can really open up to those ways of knowing, we get a whole bunch of information and things can take form in our active imagination that we can often have a lot of trouble grasping if we're just going to try to talk about it with words. And once something has a form in our active imagination, we can work with it directly in really powerful ways that can provide incredible healing. So the work, I love the work that I do, and so incredibly profound and powerful work. Coming from Boston as a kind of native skeptic, doing Northern California nutty, crunchy, working with earth, nature spirits was not on my radar as something that would feel of interest to me at all. I would have rolled my eyes at stuff like that, but it's really through the experience of the truth and the profoundly powerful nature of the healing that I've experienced and that I see other experience that's made me not only open but now an advocate. Yeah,
that's interesting stuff.
Actually. I've just finished writing a book about the basic 15 processes of my work. Which I call spiritual psychology. Did you
tell me did you do hypnotherapy too?
So hypnotherapy and shamanism are really cousins. They're very, very similar. They work with the same. They really work with the self. It's just, I like to say they're just different. It's the same mountain you're climbing or the same destination you're going to. It's just different ways to get there. And hypnotherapy is probably like taking a bus, and shamanism is more like riding a mountain bike. But it'll get you to the same place.
Okay. Well,
slightly different.
When I lived in San Francisco, I dated a girl who's a hypnotherapist, and she was trying to get me to understand the chakras and all that. And maybe I just wasn't old enough to appreciate it, but I never could get that stuff. She was telling me about the different chakras in your head and your heart and all these different places and stuff. But, I mean, it's good to have these conversations now because I'm more open to it now, right? I wouldn't even give that kind of conversation the time of day to talk about. But I think we got to just start opening our mind a little bit, and it takes time to do that stuff in people. And, glad to have you on to talk about this. And so you said you wrote a book, or have you written the book already?
The book is out.
The book is
out. It's called Allies and Demons, Working with Spirits for Power and Healing. And it's really about our allies are our own intrinsic strengths that we have, and maybe connecting with higher power in however we connect with that, whether that's God or our own highest self or, again, the spirit of nature. However people understand connecting with help beyond their own limited resources. And our demons are our fears and our anger and our unresolved emotional wounds. And when we can connect with our own strengths, then we can heal our own wounds. And it's kind of like the idea, I don't know if you're familiar with the myth of the hero's journey, that we all can kind of become heroes of our own life if we have if we have the right resources and the right map. Then we can navigate whatever's in front of us and get the treasure back from the dragon, bring it back to the village.
What made you write the book?
Well, I've been a mommy and had my little private practice for about 20 years in my house, seeing individual clients. And, my kids started to get big, and it felt like it was time for me to do the next thing. And also, because we did meet at Women's March, even if you don't remember, that was actually how we connected at the end.
I do remember you doing that.
Yeah, I was the lead of Women's March in San Francisco, the first one in 2017. And coming out of that experience, I realized I wasn't really a political person. Doing the initial march, which was really an outpouring of love and community connection, and for me, like the best of a lot of the best of what happens in America. About inclusion and social justice and speaking for those who couldn't speak for themselves. And I realized I wasn't really interested in resisting. Resisting it's a necessary thing that needs to happen, but that's not my strong point. I'm probably more interested in visioning what wants to happen next. And so I left Women's March.
That's why I dig you so much, Renee. We have similar minds in that, 100%. I mean, what made you realize that?
Well, actually, what made me realize it, again, I have this philosophy that we're a body, a mind, and a spirit, and social, emotional, like we have all these different parts, and we really they all give us information about ourselves. And I was exhausting myself, and it was starting to not feel good. If things don't feel good, we have to pay attention to that. I think that's information for us. Like, we have feelings, we have our body, we have all these resources to help guide us in what's the next right step in our life. And not that there's a predetermined path, and I think there's lots of next right steps, but, if we have pain and discomfort and dysfunction, it gives us information that something's wrong. So I started to not feel good. I was starting to get exhausted. It was depleting me. Once the march was over, I could just feel that this wasn't the place that was serving me. And I have,
I really relate to that. I relate to that idea a lot. You may know this just recently. I worked on my first political campaign for a woman called Tulsi Gabbard, who has an idea called aloha, which aloha means share, and ha means the breath of life. Share the breath of life. In Hawaiian, we're all part of one family and everything. But it was a political campaign, and though I enjoyed the aloha part, it completely exhausted me. I love her, but just getting into all the politics of things just sucks so much out of you. Whereas, as you know about my Hug It Out America movement, the things you do, putting on the positive and trying to learn about people and how to find out, who they are and how to bring out the best in them and what's next to them, like you said, empowers me and makes me feel stronger. So I decided through this process, I worked my butt off on that campaign, that I would not do that again. And I'm gone back into going completely away from politics. So I get completely what you're saying. It can just be kind of exhausting, no matter what side or what your politics are. It's just very it's a resistance no matter what side you're on. And I don't like that resistance idea either. I've never liked it. And it doesn't imply positivity. So, yeah, I agree with you on that 100%.
Well, so, you're listening to yourself. And we all have, I like to say, we're all ingredients in a big giant stew here, and we all need to know what our own ingredient is. And we're all a unique configuration of something that we have to bring. And I think that whatever it is that actually brings us joy and what fills us and nourishes us and makes us feel good, that's actually information about what we're supposed to bring into life. And, so for me, I'm dedicating my life now, and I think you do the same thing in your own way, to helping people find what that is for themselves. I feel very grateful that I've found it for myself, and that's a lot of the impetus for the book. After leaving Women's March, and also deciding I don't ever want to be exhausted like that again.
You don't ever want to be what?
Exhausted like that again. That was a really important information for me. That because it started to affect my health, and it was a learning. It was a really powerful learning experience, just to pay attention to what's true for me. So anyway, But I still want to do something for the country. I want to do something for the larger, make the world a better place, because my life is good, and now I need to bring that out into the world. And for me, as I contemplated what I could do, or kind of even what is the problem? Like, what was Women's March about? What is the underlying issue? Because, I see this in my therapy work, and I think that it's a way to look at things that's really helpful. If we can find the deepest problem and solve that, then all of the situations and all of the things that kind of are results of that deeper problem will resolve themselves. The kind of symptoms will resolve themselves if we can really work with the biggest issue. So, like if somebody has cancer and they have a stomachache, like you can work in the stomachache, but if you don't deal with the cancer, then then it's not, you got to solve the bigger problem, right? And for me, it feels like the deepest problem that I can do something about is that I believe that there's a sickness in our culture. I think that there's some real misdirection in our culture, and that a lot of the problems that we have, a lot of the suffering people have, is a result of that. And so that, and what can I do? That was my question, what can I do? What's the ingredient I bring to the stew? And for me, it's psycho-spiritual development. It's personal growth work. It's healing our own underlying problems. And if we evolve ourselves, because culture is really just a culmination of everybody who's here. It's a big algorithm of all, 220 million plus whatever. If I can help individual people to heal themselves, then that's the best thing I can do to try to heal our country and to try to heal the world. So that was my impetus for writing the book.
And so in your practice, is that kind of what you did with your practice?
So my practice, I still see individual clients. I'm actually moving into mentoring other healers now, which is very exciting. Because as I've said, I like the idea of having a mission statement. I think that it's been really helpful for me as a business owner. I've had different businesses over the years, and knowing what your primary purpose is, knowing what your intention is, really can help set your compass of where you're going to go. And, you may end up in a different place than you think you're going to go, but it gives you a direction, and you keep coming back to that. And so, for me, my mission statement has been for a long time to use all of my gifts and talents for the service of the most people. And so that has integrated itself into my work, into the book of how can I bring this work, this profound, connecting, healing work to the widest audience possible. And so that's why I wrote a book. I have my own podcast now, Spiritual Psychology. It's out on pretty much, you can find it on almost any of the channels that podcast. I podcast every week myself. And so now I'm trying to bring this work out to a wider audience, and now, bringing it out to people who work with other people. So there's a little bit of a pyramid happening so that people will be able to find their own spiritual connection. I'm also working with people, not just other healers, but working with people in the corporate world. I feel like the word spiritual is often overused, but, people, we live in such a materially oriented culture, and I think people are really starving for community. They're starving for spiritual connection. They're starving for a sense of meaning and purpose in their own lives. And this, a lot of the practices that I offer can really help people connect with their own highest self, with their own deepest purpose, with these aspects of themselves, whether they work, again, with other people or they work corporately, like how to incorporate spirit, how to incorporate their own intentions into the work in a practical way, into their world in a practical way. So that's my intention. That's what I'm trying to do. And we'll see how successful. What's success? I don't know.
Let me ask you a question that, kind of more for my information to help me. So you said you did a podcast. Is that hard to set up? Because I just started doing this radio station for about 2 weeks, and I've talked to all kinds of different people, but I'd like to upload it to a podcast. Is that pretty easy to do?
It is so easy to do, Billy. Yes. So I use a platform called Anchor, and I'll give them a plug.
Okay.
I use a platform called Anchor. It's super easy to use. It's actually free, and you can just upload an MP3 once you set up an account with them, and they put it out over almost every major channel, iTunes and Spotify and Google Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have excellent distribution. They're pretty fast. It's a really great platform. I find it incredibly user friendly, and I've had.
Do you do it live? Do you do anything live?
No. So I pre-record, and they have it. You can even record on your phone. Okay. I record on my laptop because the quality is much better, and I actually use an Adobe Audition, which is a recording thing. But there's tons and tons of different recording platforms. Yeah, and then I just save what I podcast, and I edit it a little bit and save it as an MP3, and then it can just upload it onto Anchor.
Yeah, I was just curious because that was kind of be my next step. I'm on a really obscure platform for people to listen to this. They basically have to click a link, and it's got a lot of snafus, but I really like the live part because you never know where this goes. And I like the idea that there's an unpredictability to what can go on my show, and things can go wrong, things can go right, things can go funny, things can go sad. They've already done that on the show, and I like that. But I do want to have people to be able to upload it so they can, everybody has that time from 12 to whatever to listen to my show. They don't have it. So thank you for that information on the podcast stuff because I'm going to look into that more as I move forward. But so a question about the book. Where are you selling it now?
So the book's on Amazon. You can search Allies and Demons.
Okay.
And it's on Kindle. It's as a regular hardcover book, and it's also available on my website at reneemckenna.com.
Okay.
And I'm actually just finishing up.
Go ahead.
I'm just finishing up getting an audiobook. I've been working with a narrator and recording an audiobook. Wow. So my book isn't just
a reading book. It's actually about getting people to do the inner personal growth work and inner transformational connection
It's like a
work.
workbook too.
So
it's kind of like
there is a workbook, but there's a whole series of guided audio that actually goes. So each chapter actually explain the concept, and then there's what I call inner journeys, which is kind of like a guided meditation that goes with each chapter. That is actually about doing the inner work as if you were in a session with me. And part of the reason I wanted to do this, too, was that I want to make this work as widely accessible as possible. And some people can't afford to do therapy. It's too much money for them, one-on-one. And so this is a way for people to be able to access this work. I mean, the inner journeys are actually available for free because I have a secondary podcast, which is Allies and Demons, and if you want to search Allies and Demons as a podcast, you can get all of the inner journeys for nothing. Because I want to make this book as available as possible.
So when you got another question that crossed my mind, when you got this thing done for an audiobook, and I don't think a lot of people out there know about this, so do you pick the narrator? You get people to audition? Because I worked I was a copywriter in an ad agency, and I did a lot of radio ads. So I'd go in the studio, and I'd get tons of people auditioning for the roles in my parts in this. Is that what you do too? People audition for the role, or how does it work to read your book?
Well, so people can absolutely do that. And through Audible, which is the audio book arm of Amazon.
Yeah.
You can do that and hire people. But so for me, I hate shopping. And I always tell God, you got to make this easy for me. So generally, whatever the next right thing is for me, it just comes right in my face, and it's very obvious. So what happened for me was I knew I needed to do an audiobook because a lot of people don't have time to read now, or a lot of people listening to books on audio. They like to do it that way. And my idea was to try to learn how to do it myself. And reading an audiobook is really different from doing a podcast. I'm a big talker, but doing an audiobook is much more like acting. And so I decided to hire a voice coach, a narration coach. And so I went online and I found this fabulous woman, Rachel Elena. She's in Colorado. Kudos to Rachel. And she has a thing called Big Bite Studio, and she trains people. She's a voiceover person professionally and a singer, and so she has a coaching business. So I hired her as a coach, and we worked together for a couple months as I was trying to get my own skill level and learn about how to do audio in a more professional narration kind of a way. And after a couple months of working with her, I actually decided, what happened was one day, so she's fabulous. And I said, well, we started to read the book together, and so we would record my reading. And then I said, well, Rachel, would you record your reading? Because I want to hear how you do it. Because there's all kinds of different tone and inflection and timing to make it interesting to listen to. And so she recorded the same session I did. And as I listened to hers, I said, Rachel, you have to do my book for me. Because I could do this for 5 years and I'll never be as good as you. And
so originally you were going to do it yourself.
I was going to try to do it myself, and then I decided to hire Rachel to do it. And what's really cool, again, because we live in an interactive universe, and for me, consider life like a conversation. We're always breathing in and breathing out, and the universe is always responding to us and our needs and our desires and our issues. Anyway, so it turns out Rachel has her own spiritual practice. She's very, very interested in personal growth work. And so we ended up actually trading work. And so part of the audiobook was actually paid for because she was doing some of this work as well with me, which is really fun because then she's actually not just reading the words, but she's kind of lived them herself and really understands the meaning and purpose of the work because she's kind of embodied it. So it's been a really beautiful, exciting process.
Well, I knew you had a good story. I had a feeling there was something behind there with the narration of the book. I wanted to ask you something on a different topic. that I'm thinking. How do you think is, our society advances and we get more and more reliant, even now more than ever, because of the crisis we got going on social media and how that impacts how people connect, as opposed to what you're trying to achieve?
Oh, Billy, that is such an exciting question for me right now because I'm right on the edge of that. I have had a pretty distant relationship with social media. Mm-hmm. All of Women's March was organized on Facebook, and that was a really powerful process. So I know the power of social media to connect and inform people, and it's a really amazing thing that's never existed before. So, literally you can be connected with anyone worldwide. Women's March, as I've tried to make, and historically too, as I've used social media for my own purpose, my own individual purposes, I've been very disappointed, actually, with the level of connection I've been able to achieve. In fact, you're one of the few people, even though we've never even met in person, that I feel a genuine, authentic connection with. A lot of times, the connections that when I try to go deeper with people to actually have a conversation, to actually ask them, like, what's going on besides a like or a thumbs up, they aren't interested. It felt very surface to me. And I'm not a surface person. I'm actually not interested in surface connections with people. So I haven't done much with social media except post some of my artwork and occasionally, mostly I've just used it professionally and with my artwork. And in thinking about marketing the book and thinking about stepping out and owning my experience and my expertise as a teacher at this point, I'm aware that social media is the main platform. And there's this wealth of opportunity, and it's also a place that I need to be able to navigate. And I've really, a lot of my own personal work that's been happening simultaneous to the book, because anything we do calls us to grow. My own personal growth work has been this question of how do I bring myself authentically into social media? Because there's so much inauthenticity there. There's so much. I'm 56. I have a wrinkle. I have a, so, and then I step out as a middle-aged woman. Do I have to get my face done in order to be on YouTube? Do I need to change my accent? Do I need to fucking swear? Can I do, can I be myself, or do I need to be this other person, which is really the shadow side of social media, that it's the idea that we only show this perfect picture of ourselves, and then all of the wrinkles and the mess we hide, and I see the suffering that causes my clients, and for me, what I've been trying to do is get the courage, because it really feels like it takes a lot of courage to actually be completely who I am, and let the haters be haters, and let the judges be judges, and let the lovers come. And so I'm right on the edge of trying to learn how to use social media in an authentic way and experimenting with it. And I have to say I'm a novice at it.
Yeah.
Speak to me about that, Billy. Speak back to me about authenticity and social media. I need help with that.
Oh, you picked the wrong person. I struggle with it every day, too. When I was on my hug tour with my daughters, going to all the states we went to over the summer, I think we went to 26 states, I would have to advertise myself on social media, and it was the biggest conundrum every time I did it, because it's so what I didn't want to do, but it's how I got people to reach me. So at the end of my broadcast, when my daughters were holding the camera, and I always go, don't like me, don't follow me, go hug somebody. That's what I'd say at the very end of my broadcast every time, because it's just kind of this conundrum with social media that you have, and it's interesting because my perspective is a little different. My perspective is not that we try to show our best self, that our worst self comes out on the internet, that all these things come out that you say behind social media, what I call keyboard courage, that you say to people that you would never say to them in person. And you're able to get away with it, and it just keeps ramping up to where we completely forget our humanity of each other because we're communicating through a keyboard. And that's my biggest worry, that happens. That connection is more and more. And like you said, before, at least you type something. But now you don't want to type. You just want to hit a symbol on a keyboard. You don't want to interact with a person at all. You do as much little communication, even through a keyboard, as you possibly can, just to be a voyeur and not put your 2 cents into it. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It totally makes sense. And I wonder, so what do you think about that? What do you think? You're a solution-seeking person. How do we manage that? Because this is the way that people communicate now. And how do we bring humanity through the keyboard? Or how do we help other people to do that?
Well, I think what you said, you have to be honest with people. But the second thing I think you need to do is you really need to take a breath before everything you write. You need to realize, not go straight from id impulses. People go straight from their id impulses. They write something down, and a couple minutes later, they really feel bad about that. They feel bad. I've written things on my page that I feel bad about the next day, and if I go on my page and I don't like what I wrote, I erase it. So people come across my page, see something, and I do this all the time. I think we just have to be conscious of what we're doing, but also have the conversations with people that you're having a hard time communicating with. Some of the best things that I've learned is to have conversations with people that we have very big differences. We may get in a bit of a verbal conflict, like people attack me all the time, but I work really hard to stay civil and just keep what I'm talking about and not get personal with somebody. But if somebody gets personal with me, I won't abandon it. I'll try to get them back because I think it's good practice for me to when I'm out in the real world to do that too. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we need to be more civil and think twice before what we do. And it all, more than anything, I think going out beyond the keyboard, putting the screen away as much as you can, which is the obvious things that people do, but we got to do that. Like right now, I'm doing a show tomorrow on people who are creating connection not through a screen, because there's so many things right now that are tied into a screen because we're stuck inside. Zoom, you'd think they created the virus. They're so popular right now because, man, nobody even knew who they were, and now everybody knows who they are. And then all this Facebook Live and everything. I think we just got to push ourselves to not saying, the screen is just a tool to reach people, and then go further to go outside that tool to see them face to face, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's interesting. How old are your kids?
I have an 11 and 13-year-old.
And what's their relationship with the screen?
Ooh, well, you're talking about I'm a dictator with screens in my house. They only get most 30 to 40 minutes a day to be on a screen.
Wow.
But I'm pretty religious about it, and they get mad at me sometimes. During this time, I've been a little more lax because they're stuck inside. But I try to get them out, doing stuff. Both my daughters read a lot. I'll let them read books, and I will let them read on their Kindles. But I won't, because I think that's a good tool to read from. But I won't let them get on the social media stuff. They don't even have a phone. I won't even give my kids a phone until the 9th grade. And all their friends have it. But I want them to connect with people because I think we're in danger of losing our humanity through technology. And I'm going to fight that as long as I can and try to get people to talk to people. Like we went on the tour that was a great experience for them. They got to talk to a lot of people. And they saw my struggle with social media, how I didn't want to be on there. And my kids give me a hard time about it. But, it's always a struggle to do that stuff. What about, you said you have a girl? You have one girl? Is that right?
I have a girl and a boy, 17 and 15.
17 and 15?
Oh, well, almost. They're 16 and 14. So they both have almost all of their connections, certainly during this period of time. They're both on with their friends constantly, and all through electronics, and that's actually pretty normal. I mean, that was normal before this for my daughter to be on this app called House Party, which is kind of like Zoom for kids, where all the kids get together and they can all see each other. They do their homework together. They'll just have the screen on, and their friends are in their rooms, and everybody's in their room, and they're all doing their homework together, hanging out on electronics. Yeah, and my son does it on another server called Discord, which is mostly a gaming platform. No, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, and he talks to people all over the world all the time on Discord.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, for her, she's really socially savvy. For him, he's a little bit on the autism spectrum, and so for him, it's easier for him to connect with like-minded people. He's a kind of a nerdy, super brilliant kind of kid who can be a little bit challenged by face-to-face interaction, and so
that makes sense.
It serves him, but it also has stopped him from being able to develop what might have naturally developed if it wasn't. I feel a little bit like I've been outvoted on screens now at the age that they're at. I had them also. I was a Nazi about screens for a really long time, and then I got them phones, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, the phone stuff, everybody had talked about, that's just like you're jumping off a cliff. You can't get back up there,
Nope.
It's a hard way to do that. And, I still, that's going to be a big struggle. But, I decided that they have to be in at least ninth grade before they get a phone. And I think, based on where they are in schools, it won't be too hard. If they were in a big high school, it'd be a problem. One of my daughters goes to a small Montessori school, and there's a tiny amount of kids, and they're really about keeping people off screens. So there are not a lot of kids who bring their thing. And then I have another daughter that goes to a school for dyslexia. She has dyslexia, and she has, 2 to 3 kids in her class, and she has ADHD, so I have to learn. I learn a lot from her, about the way I do things and stuff. But so it's not that hard. I think it'd be much harder for me if I was in a traditional high school or even a middle school, where there'd be a lot more pressure around. So I can see how people, that happens to them. Have you ever heard of the movie Screenagers?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see it with your kids?
Screenagers all the time. I have actually not seen it. I know of it, and we've talked about watching it. I've heard it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you know, the way they work it is you have to actually buy the video and agree to show it in a large auditorium. You can't get it online. You can't watch it anywhere, and you have to buy it with a group of parents, watch it in an auditorium, and have a discussion after it. So I watched it with some high school kids with my wife 3 years ago, and they also have things where they set up contracts, with their kids with the cell phone going up to that time, so they know exactly what's expected of each other. Because the other problem is, which I'm sure you know, if you don't have a screen in high school, in certain schools, or a phone, you're out of the loop. Like, you don't learn a lot of stuff that's going on, so you're socially out of the circle. So it's a reality you have to deal with. But this documentary I saw was pretty amazing. And so all these different age people sat down in this auditorium. We watched the thing, and then all ages of people, parents and kids, had a discussion for like an hour about it, about the movie. And I thought it was a really cool idea. I like that a lot. So, yeah, but that's the story with the screen stuff. Another thing I wanted to ask you before we run out of time is your art stuff. Are you still able? You got so much going on. Are you still able to do any of your art stuff?
Oh, I have to do art. That's my one of my happy places. Working with people and doing my art. And so I did a really fun art installation just 2 weeks ago. Sometimes I take road trips. I like to go ATVing and out into the country, and we drive far. And so I knit and crochet while we drive. And I collect up all my crocheting, and I sew it all together, and then I put it up on telephone poles. And it's called different things in different places. I call it knit bombing or yarn bombing. And
that's cool.
And so it's kind of like guerrilla public art is probably my favorite. I do a lot of paintings, and I do wire sculptures and stuff that I sell and have shown in a couple places. But public art is my favorite. So I did. In fact, there's a cute little video. I'll send you a link to it. That I put. So I climb up the telephone pole. The thing was about 18 feet long, and I attached the yarn, the knitting to the telephone pole, so it covers the whole thing. It's really great colored. And my neighbors, I live in this nice little neighborhood, and so two of my neighbors came out, and then my other neighbor came out, and then my dog walker came by, and we ended up with a little social distancing party out in front of my house. And one of my neighbors came out and started playing the guitar, and then the other people were dancing. And so we had this really beautiful, it's one of the things that public art can do. It can bring people together. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff you share on social media, right? You show where you're doing stuff outside, face-to-face with people on social media where they say they get jealous. Why? Wow, maybe I should get off this screen, right? Maybe I should go outside. Right. So did you share that on social media, or was it just spur of the moment and you couldn't get it on?
No, I shared it on social media. In fact, it kind of became, the little yarn bomb became a little bit of a destination, because people are out walking around and getting exercise, and so people were coming by. They still do. They come by to see it. Wow,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool, because there's not a lot of things out there that, that people are doing, because it's so tough. You have to get so creative right now, right? You have to be 6 feet apart. The stuff that you normally would do, you have to get so creative in the ideas of having human-to-human connection that doesn't involve a screen, and that's cool that you did that. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, the yarn bombing I've been doing for a long time.
Okay.
And I'm certainly not the only one that does it. There are lots of people worldwide that do it. So,
well, like the hug thing. A lot of people do hugs too, right? I was
crocheting and then finding different places to put it, and telephone poles is a really fun place to put it. So, I actually have another one that I'm getting ready to put up right now. I think so. My boyfriend and I are both very creative, and he has a little Surrey car, which is like one of those bicycle for two things that you sit in. They rent them in cities and parks and stuff. They're usually red. So we have a little Surrey car, and we've been driving around the neighborhoods playing music, and we have a little megaphone, and he's very funny, and so we yell funny things at people, and we wave at all the neighbors.
This does not surprise me at all about you. I love to hear this kind of
stuff. That's another one of our public art.
But that's great. What kind of music you playing?
Oh, we were playing reggae last time we went out, but we played.
There you go.
He's into doom metal. We play all kinds of different music. Depends on the mood. And we bicycle around and wave at everybody. Lots of people are kind of out on their porches and stuff here in the city, and
yeah, you got to do stuff to try to lift yourself up and lift the people around you at the same time, right? That's good. You're doing that stuff.
And have fun. You got to have fun.
And have
Joy
fun.
is
Yeah,
a source of power.
We don't do a lot outside. It's not super nice here, so we haven't done a lot outside. We've done a little bit. My daughter has this idea called Family Stones, where she's decorated stones. She's going to talk about this tomorrow, but basically she creates stones with my wife and my other daughter. They paint them and they put them on the front porch of people all around our neighborhood, and they can pick them up when they go out, pick up the mail or something. See the thing that says love or some famous quote or something.
Nice.
And we've been dropping around porches, and we're calling it Family Stones, and it's cool. And then another thing we do that's kind of similar to like your thing with blasting music around in the morning. We do, probably about 9 o'clock. I don't know if you know. There's a Facebook group called, Michael Fronte is? I bet you know who he is.
I know the name.
So you should listen to him. He's a great singer who's all about humanity and bringing everybody together. You will dig him. He's amazing. So I'm on a Facebook group of his, and everybody kind of has this kind of mindset of we're all together and positivity and everything. So we have a skate party in our house, and we skate around and play his music and use the Facebook and try to get other people to do it in other kitchens around all over. Haven't got anybody to join in yet, but we'll continue to do that. And the kids like it because, we just kind of marks up the hardwood floors a little bit, but we have a good time. Well, thanks for coming to the show and talking to me. I appreciate it. I knew I'd enjoy talking to you. And one thing I want to ask you about, I just remembered the last minute. So I remember you were doing something on the beach with a heart or something like that. What was that thing you were doing?
So right after the election, there was kind of a resurgence of neo-Nazi, super crazy right-wing stuff happening. And there was a group that came, and I can't remember the name of them, a neo-Nazi group that was coming to San Francisco, and there was a huge outrage against them and big protests against them. I mean, there was probably 40 of them and like 40,000 people. And so we decided with a friend of mine, and I can't think of his name right now, it's a guy who has organized these big human resist. He did resist on Ocean Beach before with like a couple thousand people. So he's really good at doing that, organizing people. And we decided to create a heart, and we had a big American flag. And,
well, that's cool. Well, I can't. I mentioned this at the last minute, but I can't. I'm about to get cut off in just a second. It's only an hour show, so I want to say I do want to recommend one thing. After hearing what you just told me, I want you to look up a guy named Frank Meeink on the internet. FRNKMEEINK, and hear his story. Based on what you said, it may challenge what you just said a little bit, and let you see an amazing guy who used to be neo-Nazi and now is going around the country helping people get away from that and helping people to understand how he got to where he was. So I suggest you check him out, because we got all these things in the world where we have these extreme hates, and I think we have a chance to get past those if we understand them and kind of understand them, and that's how we get away. But I just want to mention that last because you mentioned that. But just look up Frank Meeink. Let me know what you think about him.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks for coming on. I've got like 10 seconds.
Thanks so much for having me, Billy.
What do you say?
I said thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Yep. You have a good day. Take care.
You too, dear.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Keep up the good work.
What do you say?